All right, everyone, get those pizza orders ready because today's deep dive is a piping hot review mash of the brand new TMNT game.
Mutants Unleashed.
We're diving into the sewers of gaming critique to see if this one's a shellcracker or if it's left to rot in the sewers.
And who better to do that than two people who practically lived and breathed TMNT growing up? I'm not sure my parents ever got me anything but Ninja Turtles toys for years.
Oh, totally. I was obsessed. I remember having this whole elaborate story going on with my action figures, complete with makeshift sewers built out of blankets and cardboard boxes in my living room. Good times.
It's funny how those childhood memories come flooding back, right? Especially with the kids now. My son was absolutely glued to the screen during Mutant Mayhem, and I have to admit, I was right there with him. Totally sucked into that vibrant comic book world again.
Dude, that art style is a total knockout. They absolutely nailed the energy and expressiveness of the Turtles. So naturally, when Mutants Unleashed dropped,
Yeah.
claiming to be a seamless extension of that universe, let's just say expectations were high in this house.
And did the game manage to capture that same magic for you? Was it a true return to form for our pizza-loving heroes?
That's what we're here to unpack. Now, for those unfamiliar, Mutants Unleashed is going for that classic 3D beat-em-up platformer vibe. So think back to those old-school arcade games. Except now, you're moving in a fully realized three-dimensional environment, brawling your way through hordes of enemies while navigating platforms and obstacles.
Right. Several reviews we looked at highlighted that while the game takes inspiration from those classic brawlers, it also tries to incorporate some modern gaming elements. There's a heavy emphasis on combat, of course. But Mutants Unleashed also throws in things like skill trees and special abilities for each turtle, adding a layer of customization and strategy to the mix.
Yeah, I was actually surprised by how in-depth those skill trees are. It's not just about getting stronger. You can unlock new combos, passive abilities, even different play styles for each turtle, which adds a lot of replay value.
Which is smart, because some reviews did mention that the combat, while initially satisfying, could start to feel a bit repetitive after a while. The core mechanics like dodging, parrying, and using special attacks are fun, but some reviewers felt it lacked a certain depth to keep things fresh in the long run.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because several reviewers drew a parallel between this game and, get this, the Persona series.
Yes, talk about an unexpected twist. What does a gritty beat-em-up have in common with a JRPG known for its complex storylines and social simulation?
Well, apparently quite a bit. Mutants Unleashed actually incorporates some light social simulation elements. Similar to what you'd find in a Persona game, there's a day and night cycle, for instance. And how you choose to spend your time outside of missions impacts your character progression.
So it's not just about nonstop brawling. You can choose to spend your downtime building relationships with the other turtles, exploring the city, maybe even hitting up the skate park for some sweet tricks.
Exactly. It's not as fleshed out as a full-blown Persona game, of course. But it adds an interesting layer of depth that many reviewers found surprisingly engaging.
I love that. It's not often you see a beat-em-up embracing elements from completely different genres like that. But does it work? Do these Persona-esque elements feel shoehorned in? Or do they genuinely enhance the overall experience?
That seems to be the million-dollar question. Some reviewers loved this unexpected twist, praising the game for trying something different and adding an extra layer of depth to the experience. They enjoyed exploring the relationships between the turtles, engaging in side activities, and seeing how those choices impacted their progression.
Others, however, felt like this aspect was a bit underdeveloped. They acknowledged the attempt to introduce social simulation elements, but felt it didn't quite reach its full potential.
Right. And this is something we'll definitely be diving deeper into later on, because it begs the question, how much does Mutants Unleashed borrow from Persona? And does it do enough with those borrowed elements to make them truly meaningful?
That's a great point. It's one thing to draw inspiration from other games, but it's another thing entirely to integrate those elements seamlessly and create a cohesive experience.
Totally. And speaking of a cohesive experience, we have to talk about the story and setting. After all, it wouldn't be a TMNT game without a healthy dose of mutant mayhem, right?
Absolutely. And this time we're not just talking about your run-of-the-mill Stop Shredder plotline. Mutants Unleashed actually serves as a direct sequel to Mutant Mayhem, picking up a few months after the events of the film.
Yeah, they went all in on the Mutant Mayhem connection. Same art style, same voice actors, even some familiar faces popping up throughout the game, and it really feels like stepping into that world we saw on the big screen.
And that's where the story gets really interesting, because instead of just rehashing the movie's plot, Mutants Unleashed explores the aftermath. We see the turtles grappling with their newfound fame, trying to navigate this world where they're no longer forced to hide in the shadows.
Right. They're trying to figure out what it means to be mutants living in a world that's not quite ready for them. Which, let's face it, is a pretty heavy theme for a TMNT game.
It is. And the reviews were a bit divided on how well the game handles this more nuanced premise.
Some reviewers praised the game for capturing the same heart and humor of the movie. They felt like the dialogue, especially between the turtles, was spot on. And the writing maintained that lighthearted comedic tone that made Mutant Mayhem so enjoyable.
Others, however, felt like the story could have gone a bit deeper, given the intriguing premise. They argue that while the game touches on themes of prejudice, acceptance, and what it means to be different, it doesn't fully delve into them.
Like maybe a missed opportunity to explore those more complex emotions and really challenge players to think about the consequences of their actions.
Exactly. And this ties back to our earlier point about the persona elements. Some reviewers felt that the game could have benefited from a more fleshed-out social simulation aspect, allowing for deeper interactions with both human and mutant characters.
It's like imagine if your choices in the game, how you treat other characters, the missions you choose to take on, actually had a tangible impact on the world around you.
Right. Imagine if you could choose to align yourself with certain factions, influence public opinion on mutants, maybe even shape the future of mutant-human relations in the game world.
That would be incredible. Talk about raising the stakes. But even without those more complex narrative choices, there's still plenty to enjoy in Mutants Unleashed.
Absolutely. Especially for fans of the movie. It's a fun, visually stunning extension of that universe, and it's clear that a lot of love and care went into its creation.
And that brings us to the million-dollar question, is Mutants Unleashed worth your hard-earned pizza money?
Well, the consensus seems to be, it depends.
Classic. Never a straightforward answer in the gaming world, is there?
Rarely. But let's break it down. If you're a die-hard Mutant Mayhem fan, chances are you'll get a kick out of this game. It's a faithful adaptation of that world with the added bonus of being able to control your favorite turtles and kick some shell yourself.
And for parents like us, looking for a fun, family-friendly game to play with the kids, Mutants Unleashed seems like a solid choice.
The co-op mode is a great way to team up and battle through the game together, plus the difficulty level seems to be pretty forgiving. So even younger players can jump in and enjoy the action without getting frustrated.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But what about those hardcore gamers out there? The ones craving a more challenging and innovative experience?
Well, that's where Mutants Unleashed might fall a bit short. The reviews suggest that while the combat is fun, it doesn't quite reach the level of depth and complexity that some gamers might be looking for.
And those Persona-inspired elements, while a nice touch, don't fundamentally change the core gameplay loop. So if you're expecting a groundbreaking genre-bending experience, you might want to temper your expectations.
It's all about managing expectations, really. Mutants Unleashed isn't trying to reinvent the wheel. It's a fun, accessible beat-em-up that captures the spirit of the Mutant Mayhem movie and offers a decent amount of content for fans to enjoy.
So to sum it all up, visually impressive, faithful to the source material, and perfect for some family-friendly fun, but maybe not the most innovative or groundbreaking title out there.
Exactly. It's a solid slice of TMNT action, even if it doesn't quite deliver a full pizza's worth of depth and innovation.
But even if it's not like pushing the boundaries of game design, it does make you wonder,
What's that?
what could a truly next-level TMNT game look like in this day and age?
Ooh, now you're talking. Imagine taking all the good stuff from Mutants Unleashed, that gorgeous art style, the social elements, the potential for a living, breathing New York City, and cranking it up to 11.
Right. Like picture this, you're swinging through the skyscrapers, as Mikey, the city's laid out below you, not just a bunch of rooftops, but actual streets you can explore. Maybe even grab a slice at a realistically rendered pizza joint.
And those social interactions we talked about. Imagine if they weren't just side activities, but actually shaped the narrative.
Yes. What if your choices determine whether the turtles become beloved heroes or feared vigilantes?
You could have branching storylines, meaningful relationships with other characters, maybe even influence how the city views mutants as a whole.
And imagine the combat system evolving alongside that. Instead of just button mashing, you're mastering each turtle's unique style.
Learning complex combos, facing off against iconic villains with the fate of New York City hanging in the balance.
Now that is the TMNT game I dream about.
Mine too, a game that truly captures the heart of the franchise while pushing the boundaries of what a TMNT game can be.
A delicious blend of action, adventure, and heart with a sprinkle of social commentary on the side.
Maybe someday that dream will be a reality, but until then, we've got Mutants Unleashed to tide us over.
And hey, For a game based on a movie about teenage turtles who love pizza, it's not a bad way to spend an evening.
Not bad at all. Thanks for joining us on this cheesy deep dive, everyone. And remember,
Cowabunga.